Larders. Hi, Lardo. Hi, Lardites. I want to say thank you for all of the people who have asked where I was, etc., etc. Jules knew because Jules is one of my best friends, and I asked her not to say anything because things were uncertain. I had the big D. I don't mean diarrhea. Well, kinda. I had Delta. I had the Delta variant of the COVID virus. And I had it because of people like Lardo who spread it. Now, what I said in one of my videos, probably a few back, was that I believe that Lardo had COVID when she had the sore throat and she said she went to urgent care. I believe that she had it. Now, I don't think she had it very bad because I don't think she actually has half the ailments she says she has. That's why people who have real ailments like me and most of the people that she tried to get on her side, because she was acting like she had ailments to get viewers, we get really sick, and people like her just spread it. And I mean, her nose is huge. She's like freaking Typhoid Mary of the COVID because she's down there in COVID in Phoenix and spreading this all over their big nose. And I had said a few videos back that I bet that she was going to admit that she had COVID but skew the date. Sure as, I can't say bad words on here because I'll get reported. Sure as you know what, she now said that she had COVID because you see, CVS was giving away $100 if you got the COVID vaccine. So she got the COVID vaccine and wouldn't say that she got $100 for doing it. Sellout. But anyway, she had made her fame by acting like she didn't believe in COVID and it was just a cold flu, whatever. So when she got it, she couldn't say that it actually sucks, number one, because she, would lose too many fans. But she said that she had it in January of 2020. Now, any of us who watch her, and I do watch her, she did not quarantine during 2020, and she did not show any signs of illness, which means that when I suspected she had it, she just had it. But she didn't seem to be very sick with it. I mean, she said that she was the sickest she's ever been with this strep throat thing. Okay. Now, she wants attention. We all know that. So it probably tore her up inside because she probably wanted to say, I have COVID and it freaking sucks and I need help. She wanted all the attention she could get from having COVID, but because she has made such an ass of herself that she always does, she couldn't. So she once again boxed herself in by her own stupidity. So I had it. I'm going to tell you, my family went on vacation. And I did not go on vacation because I have congestive heart failure. I was waiting until I go to my cardiologist, which is actually today. This is my big 1-year thing. I tried to make a cardiologist appointment several months ago because I wanted to know if they believe that I should get the vaccine because I have a very high probability of getting a blood clot. And that's one of the problems with both the virus and the immunization was causing. So they said that I could talk to my doctor about it. Well, I couldn't get this appointment for 3 months. So my family went on vacation and I did not go. My husband was vaccinated. He was vaccinated by the government. He is a government employee. And he was vaccinated back in January. And my children were not because they're in an age group where they could have it and do pretty well with it. So we decided the odds were not there because we know that one of my children who was tested has the same gene mutation that I do, where I'm at a very high rate of blood clots. So was one of my sons, right? So that I know, I haven't tested the other ones yet. So my family went on vacation. I stayed behind to take care of my cats. So it was just me and my cats for 1 week. They came home from vacation. They went to a state that is very, very liberal about not wearing masks and not getting vaccines. And they went and they had the time of their life. They had a great time, right? They went to a water park. They went to a couple of museums. They did everything that a family should do on a family vacation. And they had a great time. I stayed behind because I didn't want COVID. I didn't want to go to those highly populated places. Not that I minded too much staying behind with my cats, because I love my cats. A week with my cats with no one to bother us. It was heaven to me, I mean, come on. Anyway, so they came home tired. Well, I thought they were tired because all the activities they'd done, right? Well, 2 days after they got home, they were all very sick. I live in an area where there are a lot of wildfires. The wildfires started affecting my asthma. I assumed the wildfires were making me sick. I assumed I had a sinus infection. I got better like everybody got better after 2 days. Then all hell broke loose in my body. And every underlying condition that I have went. And I could not breathe. And unfortunately, no one would help me with that. I went right to the emergency room, and there were people all over. There were probably about 100 people waiting to get in, and I couldn't breathe. And I started coughing up straight blood. And I had the world's worst headache. They told me I could tell the nurse that at triage. I said, when can I get into triage? Because I have congestive heart failure. I've had a heart attack before. I can't breathe. I have massive chest pain. They said that I'd be able to tell a nurse that in 4 hours. I didn't have 4 hours. I'm going to tell you that. I didn't have 4 hours. My stats were at 82%. I called, and I was able to get an IV at my home. I had a cash pay. I paid $600 to get fluids in my home that night because I couldn't keep any fluids because the migraine was so bad, right? I figured this is a sinus infection, whatever, right? But a horrible sinus infection. I can't freaking breathe. Why would I think I had COVID? Because my husband, who was immunized, was equally ill. Okay? So my husband decides he can't breathe. So the next day he actually went to the emergency room himself, different side of town. He got diagnosed with COVID lung, and the way that the damage is to his lungs, it showed this like pattern with like a tail on something that is from the Delta variant. So although he was immunized months before from the government, he had Delta COVID confirmed, as did my daughter. My daughter was not immunized. So there I was, sick at home, coughing up blood. I could keep my sats up as long as I kept on my CPAP. Weird, right? As long as I was on my CPAP, I was fine. Well, I just stayed on my freaking CPAP. I couldn't have any light or anything anyway. So then that was 2 days since my IV, and I still could not hold anything. I was dry heaving, just air, because I couldn't eat anything, and it hurt so bad. And you know that part when you feel like you're going to die when you have the flu? COVID, especially Delta, makes that happen every half an hour. That part where you feel like you're going to die? The difference was I actually was. My heart rate and everything was, my heart rate was down to 40. My sats were down to 82. Unless I was on the CPAP, which was weird, right? So then I Googled, can CPAP help with COVID? Sure enough, people were using CPAP when they didn't have ventilators. So they started using them in a nursing home for all the patients that had COVID, and they were doing great. They showed the CPAP actually works as good as ventilators. So essentially, I was putting myself on a ventilator every time I was on my COVID, on my CPAP. Now that got taken away because then they decided this one nursing home where I used to actually work, the headlines got in there and they said that COVID was spread by CPAP. So COVID patients should not use their CPAP. Well, if you're home alone, you've got COVID anyway, use your freaking CPAP. It'll save your friggin' life because it gets your blood gases in order. Because one of the jack rabbits said to me, if you can talk, you can breathe. That's not true. I've had asthma all my life. I know how to accessory breathe, which is breathing very, very surface thing, which messes up all your blood gases. You can take my arterial blood and be very low. So, I had COVID and I had COVID bad. From that point, I decided, okay, I've got COVID. If he does, I have it. Called my doctor. She said, call 911. I didn't want to do that. I wanted to take my own stubborn butt in. But I couldn't get off my CPAP and not have my sats drop. So I worked with my lungs to get myself to be off. I Googled where the nearest hospital was, and the nearest hospital was 16 minutes away. So I kept Googling, making sure it was still 16 minutes, 18 minutes. Made my body go without oxygen for that long so I could drive myself to the hospital. I drive myself to the hospital. Tell them I can't breathe. And they say if you can talk, you can breathe, just like the other hospital. And I said, please give me oxygen. I'm a behavior case, if you want to believe that. Okay? Just give me oxygen. Oxygen. No, you don't need oxygen. They took my sats and they said, you know what? Yeah, it's low, but COVID patients tend to over-oxygenate themselves. So I saw my sats were at 87. Well, then it popped up to 98, then went back down. And they said, oh, 98, you're fine. I'm like, no, look at it, what it's doing. It drops. And it dropped back down. And they wouldn't let me have oxygen. And when you can't have oxygen and you have the massive pain and it makes you feel like you cannot breathe, honestly, because the x-ray proved that my lungs were bleeding, and all of the inflammation and everything and the damage to my lungs, it not only felt like I couldn't breathe. So I said, please let me have oxygen, please. And they also did not gown up. And I said, my husband has Delta. I probably have Delta. And they're like, so what? I said, in their social distancing, don't you guys have all these signs up here because of a reason? And they were like, what are you scared of? I said, I can't breathe. I'm scared. And they started laughing at me. So, yeah, it's tough, but this is the truth, and this is what you're up against. So they refused to treat me until the next shift came on, which was fine with me, Jack. So anyway, I said, I want oxygen, or I want a physician in here that says why I can't have oxygen. So the one threw a nasal cannula at me, and she goes, there, you have oxygen. And they laughed. Well, long ago and far away, I was in nursing school. I had to drop out because I'm massively allergic to latex. Side note there. I know that oxygen has to be turned on by the wall. And so I turned it on, and it actually had like quite a switch. So about an hour, about a half hour later, the one nurse who threw the thing at me came in. And I said, are you my nurse? She's like, you saw me already. I said, yeah, but you have your name tag turned. So I said, well, what are you going to do here? I'm going to start an IV. The doctor said I need to. I said, well, if you're my nurse, how much oxygen am I on? She wouldn't say anything. I said, you're my nurse and you're in charge of my care, so how much oxygen am I on? She wouldn't say anything. I go, did you just, and your assistant just throw that at me? And she goes, no, we gave you oxygen. I said, how much? I don't know. I said, well, you know what? You actually didn't turn on the oxygen. Oh, oxygen is really hard to turn on. I said, well, if you can't turn on oxygen, I don't want you starting an IV on me. So, she left. It's fine with me. Then the most beautiful girl came in, and she was this nurse, and she had a beautiful red hair with all these spiral curls, right? She was so friggin' nice. I told her what happened. She's like, I'm so sorry. And she goes, it's not the first time it's happened on the night shift. I'm day shift. And I was like, all right, cool. So, then what happened was a little bit worse. Because then the doctor came in, and she's a doctor of everybody, and she is really cool. And she said to me, we're really concerned about your x-ray. We're really concerned about your EKG. You've got some changes consistent with COVID pneumonia, but yours looks to be viral. We can't treat it. Viral pneumonia takes its course, and there's no medication we can give to you. She said, you're in acute kidney failure. Your potassium is a critical low. You should be hospitalized, but we have no available beds. There are no available beds in the state. I explained my headache then. She said, we're going to do some more blood tests on you because we believe that you have a blood clot. All of the tests came back indicating I had a blood clot. That she did further. So then she said, we can't find the blood clot. We did the contrast dye. This is all the area of your lungs that you're not able to breathe. This is all the area that we see that there's bleeding in your lungs. Your platelets are twice the normal amount. You're at such a high rate of a blood clot that you need to come right back if there's any change. It's like, well, what difference would it make? There's no beds. Well, we might have to air fly you to another state. I'm like, what? Anyway, my head hurt so bad. Finally gave me medications to stop that. I went back home and I dry heaved for another week. My head hurts so bad. I hired another IV. It cost me another $600 rather than go back to the hospital. So that was $1,100. Called my main doctor. She wanted me to go back to the hospital. I refused. She wanted me to call the next day. And at that point I was AMA. I called the next day. And she said, okay, you have to go to you have to go to the hospital. And I was like, I won't. They won't help me. So she called an ambulance on me. The ambulance took me down to a major metro hospital where they asked if I'd like to sit in a chair or a wheelchair. And I said, a wheelchair? My fevers were still in the 104s at that point, and I was dripping in sweat all the way. I don't know how many people I infected. I told them straight up I have Delta COVID and my head hurts like I've got an accident. It's hurt for 8 days straight. They said, well, the ER wait now is about 7 or 8 hours. So my doctor had me come down. She called the ambulance on me because I can't breathe unless I'm on my CPAP. They said, well, that's just the inflammation in your lungs. COVID just makes you feel like you can't breathe. And I sat there in front of a crowd of people and dry heaved in sweat from head to toe for 7 hours in the waiting room, infecting everybody who was there because that's where they put me. There were people visiting family. There were newborns. This is our world. This is COVID. And this is the COVID Delta. This is the Grand Cull. This is killing people, and people don't care. At that point, they called me back after 8 hours, and they diagnosed me with meningitis. And that's what the headaches were from. And they agreed it was viral as well. My platelets were still twice the amount. My white blood count was 28. And they still called it viral and told me to go home because there were no beds. My calcium, salt, sodium, potassium, everything, you know, magnesium, everything was critically low from all the vomiting. But they gave me a medication, Reglan, which stopped the headache. Problem was, another medication that I'm on has a fatal reaction to it. So once the pharmacist figured that out, they called me and made me stop it. At that point, though, that had slowed the dehydration down enough that I was able to start drinking a tablespoon at a time of fluid. And I fought my way out. I did not believe I was going to survive, and I did talk to people that I know have already passed, and they were as real as they are to you and me right now. I used up one of my lives. I'll tell you that much. COVID is no joke. And I hate the way that Lardo has made this a joke. And I hate the way that she's acted like it's more important to go out every day and eat and be around people. And if she did have COVID, she did not quarantine. I was quarantined for a total of 21 days. I tested positive on day 15 of the virus. I've been sick for 15 days. What they're now finding is that people are contagious for much longer than they thought initially. And that's why my quarantine was extended. I wore my mask. My kids came home, they were tired. And when they were sick, I took care of them that first day. And I wouldn't not. That's my nature. I'm a mom. So if I died from COVID because I treated my kids with COVID, I would have died doing what I love because I love my kids. And I will always take care of them. Even if no matter what they had. But now I've got to deal with what this did to my brain, what this did to my heart. And I don't look good, I'm telling you. I mean, I was pushing it at the beginning. You know, I'm overweight and I'm hideous. But I'm telling you, this freaking thing pushed me over the edge. And I'm swollen and I've got weird freaking acne. And I'm telling you, COVID's no freaking joke.